There's an updated report on what it would take for a family in Massachusetts to be self-sufficient. As many of you have heard before, our state is fairly expensive, and that especially applies to Boston. To close the gap in income, there would have to be more help with some of the other gaps, the gap in job skills and in access to education. That's the message in a new report from the Boston nonprofit, the Crittenden Women's Union. And joining us as our guest from the union is the president and CEO, Elisabeth Babcock. Thank you very much for being with us.
Nice to be with you.
First of all, this is an organization that people are a little unsure about the name. It sounds halfway familiar, but you're actually the same organization that has been really doing these reports, at least one of your components, for several years here now.
Right. The Crittenden Women's Union is the result of a merger that happened in July of 2006 between the former Crittenden organization and the Women's Education and Industrial Union. And the Women's Education and Industrial Union is the organization that's produced the self-sufficiency standard for Massachusetts for many years now.
Now, the big number that leaps up in the report is the people who fall short of self-sufficiency in Massachusetts. We're talking about almost 1.5 million adults. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. When we look at what self-sufficiency means, we're talking about people earning enough to be able to support what we think of as the basic needs of life. Your housing, childcare, putting food on the table, your basic bills. And we're not talking about additional resources for building assets. And when you look at those numbers, the basic requirements, about almost 1.5 million individuals in Massachusetts fall into the category of really not being able to make basic ends meet.
And we're talking about, we're not talking about a large family here. We're talking about a household of 3 maybe, right?
Well, it's all different family configurations and sizes, but for a family of 3 in Boston, we're talking if they were to have a school-age child and one child who's younger than school age, the average cost to meet those basic needs in Boston is a little over $58,000 a year. And people listen to those numbers and they say, wow, who has that? Not everybody has that. A lot of people don't. And the answer, of course, is true, and it's buried in those large numbers we just talked about.
Well, of course, the most obvious guess, and this is a lot of what the report is about, is that people don't make that kind of money because either they don't have the job skills, or maybe even if they have the skills, maybe not enough jobs are there.
Yeah. Massachusetts has a lot of jobs that are open, but the jobs that are open in Massachusetts have a tendency to fall into 2 categories. They either fall into entry-level jobs that basically don't pay those kind of wages, or they fall into the category of jobs that do pay those wages, but normally to get those wages, you would have to have a couple years of college education at least, or comparable training in the workplace. And so for individuals, it used to be that you could sort of get to know a friend of Uncle Harry's who would get you a job in the union, and that would be a way to basically make ends meet, is to get a good, solid paying job, entry-level job that paid a good union or manufacturing type wage. But those jobs are being lost in Massachusetts. They're eroding at a pretty fast clip. And so because of that, we now see this bifurcation that I was just talking about, with some jobs that don't pay a survival wage and other jobs that do but require a lot more training.
Thinking of this just in terms of those families, the people in the families who have to earn money, what's the biggest barrier to getting that training right now?
Well, it's a number of things. Unfortunately, you know, if there were one easy fix, we could write a piece of legislation maybe that would get us over that hurdle, but it's a lot of things. And when you think about it, those of us who are parents, I have children who are in their 20s, and you think about what it takes to get them to the point that they can cover all their own bills and support themselves, it takes a lot of things. And with these families, it's no different. It takes having a roof over your head and childcare, and sometimes when you don't make a reasonable wage, you have to have some public supports for your child care or food stamps or other supports. If you're not making enough to pay for those things yourself, you have to keep those subsidies going at the same time that you work, because there is a requirement to work for public support in Massachusetts, and you also have to try to go to school at the same time. So think about trying to raise kids, trying to keep a roof over your head, trying to keep them in school, trying to hold down a job, and trying to go to school on top of it. And there are a lot of rules around all of that don't work. Let me give you one example. If you want to go to school, to college, and you want to get loans to go to college, the largest loan program we have is the Pell Grant program.
Federal grant.
Right. And that Pell Grant program requires you to be a full-time student to access it. So we have a lot of rules, that being just one of them, that work against working families trying to work their way out of poverty.
I guess also the standard for getting self-sufficiency, this is not about sending everybody to law school or having them get an MBA.
No.
You're talking about community college.
Yes, yes. We do a lot of research about what we call hot jobs. Hot jobs, for our definition, are jobs that require 2 years or less after high school to get into those hot jobs, 2 years of training, associate's degree level, are in high vacancy in Massachusetts, and also pay that self-sufficient wage. And believe it or not, there are a lot of hot jobs in Massachusetts, jobs that have really fast-track pathways to $50,000 a year incomes, like things like healthcare jobs, like being a radiology technician or a sonographer, security jobs like being a policewoman or policeman, other kinds of jobs that are in the manufacturing trades. These are all jobs that require some training. To be an HVAC technician, you have to have some training, but it doesn't require a bachelor's degree, and they pay good solid salaries. And unfortunately, in Massachusetts, there are a lot of them that are going begging.
Of course, the bigger picture of Massachusetts is that overall we have fairly good education, even fairly good public education. But I guess for this particular kind of educational need, it looks kind of tough.
It is tough, and I think the toughest thing has been the fact that everyone looks around and they see that there are lots of people who are making it in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a high-tech kind of environment where a lot of people do very, very well. Unfortunately, what's happened is, as I said, we have basically had a level number of jobs created in Massachusetts. We haven't really had large jobs, net jobs creation. And what's happened is we've lost jobs in manufacturing, and we've increased jobs in healthcare and education that require a little bit of education to get most of those jobs. And we've increased jobs in hospitality, in the hospitality industry, so in hotels and other jobs like that. There are vacancies in hospitality, there are vacancies in healthcare and education, but as I said, they're two very different earnings pathways. In hospitality, the average hospitality wage in Massachusetts is about $380, $390 a week. In a week.
So that sounds almost maybe less than $20,000 a year. Maybe.
That's right,
yeah.
Exactly. And the jobs that they're taking the place of, the manufacturing jobs, the median manufacturing wage in Massachusetts is $1,300 plus a week. So the jobs that we've lost have been that middle income job, and we've replaced them with jobs that are paying higher for the most part and paying less. And so if people want to get into a pathway that will allow them to support themselves and their families, they have to get a little bit of education beyond high school.
Of course, the big question about community colleges, you would think, well, they are relatively affordable, but for the people you're trying to help, they're not that affordable.
Well, Massachusetts has among the most expensive community colleges in the country. We have not increased our subsidies in public education in Massachusetts as much as other states have. And not only are the community colleges in Massachusetts more expensive than average around the nation, but they also don't have the kind of loans available and whatnot for part-time students that they do for full-time students. So it's a real catch-22 for individuals who have families who really do want to see to it that their families have a better life. It's hard for them.
One other barrier to getting to the goal in that community college is that many of the students who enter still need to do some of the things that they should have gotten when they were in high school.
That's absolutely right. We know that for students who are graduating from the public school system, that about 37% of them require some kind of additional training and education before they can do community college level work. And in fact, for the 3 community colleges that are located around Greater Boston, they tell us that on average, about 80% of the students who are graduating from the Boston public school system who are applying to those colleges are requiring some form of additional math or English to then be able to tackle the normal college curriculum.
So hence the recommendations, more help with that public education part. And we should mention more information on this you have on the web, right?
We do. We have a very rich website that's www.liveworkthrive.org, and that website has a lot of information about what those hot jobs are in Massachusetts, how to connect to them, how to train for them, about self-sufficiency and what an individual self-sufficiency standard is for an individual family, and about a lot of other training programs.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Nice to talk with you.
From the Crittenden Women's Union, Elisabeth Babcock. Still to come, the report from South Boston.